A car crash in a snowstorm, and that's just the start. Exactly what it says on the tin. Did I fall for this short story? Unsatisfied mum makes a list, causes chaos. Love visions, Italy, and boys, what's not to like? Did I dive in too deep with this book? This video, I had one rule and one rule only. I can only read books that were released in 2025. There have been so many great releases this year that I decided to ignore my ever-expanding TBR pile and only focus on books that were released this year. So without further ado, let's jump into the first book of 2025 that I read for this video, and that is The Crash by Freida McFadden. Tegan is 8 months pregnant and life has been pretty tricky recently. So she decides she wants to go and visit her brother before the birth of her baby, so she's not all alone. Unfortunately, on the way there, she's involved in a very bad crash and she thinks she's broken her ankle, she can't walk, she can't get out of the car. But luckily, someone stops and comes to rescue her. Or do they? So what were some of the parts that I liked in the book? I really liked Tegan as a main character. She's really strong and moralistic. I am a fan of Freida's writing style, and I know not everyone is, but I am. You also obviously get all the twists and turns of a classic Freida mystery thriller. But what were some of the parts of the book I wasn't as keen on? My biggest gripe with this book is that characters make assumptions about the other characters, and it's a pretty flimsy central plot line. I didn't particularly like that. It's kind of like the miscommunication trope in a romance, and I don't like those at all. It is very OTT and a bit on the far-fetched side, but I'm okay with that. I mean, it's a book, right? It wasn't my favourite book of Freida's, I'll admit. Here are some of my favourite quotes from The Crash. She's judging me because I am 23 years old, 8 months pregnant, and unmarried. Even though I haven't seen her face yet, I already love her. I want her to have a better life than I've had, and all the advantages I never got to have. Overall, I did enjoy reading The Crash, but I did get very frustrated with all the assumptions in the book. I thought that was a very weak point of the story, and I did roll my eyes quite a few times because of it. I rated the book 3.5 stars, and although it wasn't a favourite of mine, I'm definitely still on Team Freida. Now, before we move on, just make sure you've got all the nods to the book. So, on to book number 2, The Psychopath Next Door by Mark Edwards. Ethan Dove and his new family have just moved to a new area for a fresh start. One day, his daughter Rose starts being harassed by the local bullies, where new neighbour Fiona Smith steps in and stops it. Ethan obviously is incredibly grateful, especially as Rose and Fiona seem to get on really well. And Fiona even offers to help out with childcare during the summer holidays when they have an issue. However, is Fiona just being a good neighbour, or does she have another agenda in mind? So what were some of my favourite parts of the book? I thought the premise for the book was quite an interesting one, a neighbour not quite being exactly what they seem. I really liked Ethan's character and also the fact that he worked in a music shop. I'm a big music fan and I really like when it's referred to in books. There were some interesting parts, especially towards the end of the book. But what were some of the parts I wasn't so keen on? I could tell almost from the start of the book that the writing style wasn't going to be for me. As the story progressed as well, I felt like it got silly and very contrived. I just felt like it wasn't that believable and it was a bit too far-fetched for me, in my opinion. The book obviously centres around dark topics, so check any warnings if you feel like you need to. I wasn't a big fan of Fiona's character. She was so over the top that she became like a caricature. Also, at the ending, I wasn't a big fan of that because it leaves things out in the open and it just didn't leave things clear. Here are some of my favourite quotes from The Psychopath Next Door. Fiona's place was the kind of neat and clean you could only achieve if you didn't have children. A house where you could leave a room tidy, knowing that next time you walked back in that room, it wasn't going to have been trashed. She liked to think that she and Maisie had imprinted their energy on the place. Liked to believe the place felt haunted. Liked to imagine the couple's baby waking up screaming in terror, standing in its cot, rattling the bars and wailing as a cold dread it couldn't understand crept beneath its soft, plump skin. Overall, I didn't really enjoy reading The Psychopath Next Door. That was mainly down to the writing style, which I knew pretty much from the start wasn't for me. I also felt like it was a bit silly and contrived. I rated the book 2.25 stars, and honestly I feel like maybe I was actually a bit generous there. I definitely wanted to DNF the book at certain points, and in the future I'm going to do that because I have so many books on my TBR, I'd rather be reading something that I enjoyed. Ugh. Okay, well that book wasn't for me, but hopefully the next one fares better. I chose my next book because I'd heard only good things about the writing by this author, and at the time I hadn't read any of her full books. It's Ali Jimenez and The Full Risk, which is a short story on Amazon Original Stories. It's Valentine's Day, and neither Charlotte nor Seth are looking for love. In fact, they're actively avoiding it. Due to a major error, they both find themselves stuck in their apartments one floor up and they can't escape. Over time, they get to know each other and they find out why each other are not looking for love. But is that about to change? So what are some of my favourite parts of the book? Seth is an acts of service guy, and I do love an acts of service man. This book had the right balance of so many different things in it. The humour, the romance, the banter between the characters, the likeability of the characters, the vulnerabilities. There were just so many good things that the balance was just really right and it really suited me for a book. I was really surprised by, being such a short book, how much I liked it and what were some of the parts I wasn't as keen on in the book. You could say that the premise for the book, where they're both stuck in their apartments on the first floor, is a bit unrealistic, but in a book, anything goes. My major gripe with this book is it's too short. I really enjoyed the book and I would have quite happily read a full story of this. Here are some of my favourite quotes from The Full Risk. I remembered the first time Seth came hobbling home on crutches a week ago. I actually felt a little sorry for him. He'd been struggling to get his door open while he carried a bag of groceries, and I'd almost popped out to help. Then I remembered that's how Ted Bundy had lured his victims, and I changed my mind. So you have a fish? I asked. Yeah, a better fish. Oh, does he have a name? He does, Swim Shady. I barked out a laugh. Is he the real Swim Shady, or all the other Swim Shadies are just imitating, he said, totally serious. I hadn't felt this way in a long time. It was like fate conspired to place the perfect woman in the apartment across from mine, and then it knocked out the stairs for good measure. And my only job was to make her interested in me, which I wasn't sure I was actually doing. Overall, I loved, underline loved, reading this story. It ticked every box for me, and that's almost unheard of, especially in a short story. I was actually quite sad to finish it because I would have loved to read a full story of it. One extra thing I loved was the dedication at the start. I actually initially missed it, but it says, for all the women who choose the bear, and all the men who do the work to understand why, may the forest be a little less scary one day. If you don't understand the reference, maybe look up the trigger warnings for the book. I don't want to spoil it. But essentially there was something on Twitter or X where women were asked whether they would rather be alone with a male stranger or a bear. Women overwhelmingly chose the bear for safety reasons. I thought for the author to acknowledge this issue and put it in the book as a dedication It really touched me and it made me love the book even more. I don't think you'll be surprised that I rated the book 5 stars. Even I was surprised by how much I loved this book in so little pages. I was really blown away, and it actually put Abby's books at the top of my radar from now on. That was quite a swing, wasn't it? From a book that I should have DNF'd to a 5-star book. I wonder what's next. Book number 4 was 45 Things to Do Before You're 45 by Julia Tuffs. This book focuses on Charlie, a mum and wife, and life is pretty hectic and tiring. She finds out that one of her old school friends has passed away, and this lights a fire under her to start changing her life. She makes a list of all the things that she's ever wanted to do, and she starts trying to tick them off one by one. So what were some of the good parts of the book? Charlie is a relatable character, albeit an exaggerated one. She's not sure where her life is going, and she feels like maybe she's missing out a bit. I am always a fan of a list, and I am a big fan of characters who aren't afraid to try new things in making their lives better. On the flip side, the negative parts of the book were, you could say that Charlie is being quite selfish and narcissistic. She doesn't take everyone or everything into consideration. She's only really thinking about herself. The book does kind of leave things up in the air, and I'm not always a big fan of that. However, I would say in this story, I think it's justified. Here are some of my favourite quotes from 45 Things to Do Before You're 45. This isn't how I pictured my life, you know. It was going to be fabulous. I was going to be fabulous. Overall, I'd say I liked 45 Things to Do Before You're 45, but it's not top tier to me. It's more an easily listening sort of romp. I rated the book 3 stars, and just an additional note, if you listen on audiobook, it's narrated by Izzy Sooty. She's been in many things, including Peep Show, and I love her voice for narrating, and it was really pleasant to listen to. Anyway, on to the next. Book number 5 was Something Like Fate by Amy Lee. The reason I chose this book was I actually really liked the idea of it. Lo's family have always had visions of their one true love, but not Lo. In fact, she has no psychic abilities at all, until she does. She has a vision of meeting her intended when she's backpacking her way around Italy. So she and her friend Tella, who's along for the ride, take a flight to sunny Italy to see if they can find her the one. So what were some of my favourite parts of the book? I do like a book that has psychic abilities in it, and I'm not saying I believe in it, but I just feel like you can have a lot of fun with the theme. I also really like books that make you question life. I don't mean that in a profound, deep sort of way, although I do like that too. It's just more like, what if? And this book definitely has this for sure. I was also a big fan of how they incorporated some of Lo's mum's backstories into the story. That was really good. But what were some of the parts I wasn't as keen on? There are some sadder parts in the book for sure, so just be aware of that going in. But I feel like it was told in a really lovely way as well. I'm not sure the main male romantic lead was really romantic lead material, if that makes sense, but he is pretty realistic as a character, and actually I feel like I'm quite like him. Here are some of my favourite quotes from Something Like Fate. She continues, like, if a guy doesn't give you immediate butterflies, you're over him. But why waste my time if he's not my soulmate, I counter. On the way out, I spot a young couple relaxing on a picnic blanket. She's nestled between his outstretched legs, back resting against his chest, like she belongs there. He plants a tiny kiss on her temple. For him, she's the view. It's exactly the kind of love I've wanted all my life. The kind I hope to find. The kind Mum and Dad had. It's easy to have fun with someone on all these elaborate adventures, but the real challenge is finding someone to enjoy the mundane. Someone who makes you look forward to the blurry grey of everyday life. That takes someone special. That's what's real. Overall, I really enjoyed reading something like Fate. The psychic visions and the backpacking around Italy were really fun elements in the book. I rated the book 4 stars, and actually I'm really excited to read more of Amy's books in the future because this is my first book of hers that I've read. And so, on to the final book of the video, Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Scarlett Vandermeer is a competitive platform diver. She's navigating her way through an injury at the moment. She's also at university and trying to get into medical school. One day she meets Lucas, who thrives on discipline and rules as an ace swimmer. And when someone who's known to both of them tells them a secret, they realise they might have more in common than they first thought. So what were some of the good parts of the book? Scarlett has a really lovely relationship with her stepmother. In addition, Scarlett is seeing a therapist in the book, and I do like it when a character tries to better themselves in a story. But what were some of the parts I wasn't as keen on in the book? This is not what I would call a classic romance. It's very much focused on consensual kink exploration, and it's basically what I call smut. There's also a lot of the C word in it as well. Lucas does some questionable things within the book in regards to romance, and I wasn't keen on that. I also wasn't keen on either of the main characters. There is also the third character that I have mentioned who is known to both of them, and that relationship was just odd to me. I've become aware recently that the writing style from the author isn't really for me. I find the books are written to try and come across as intellectual, which I have no problem with, by the way. It's more the way it's written into the story. It kind of feels like it's just put in to be smart, if that makes sense. And because of that, it doesn't really flow naturally to me. Here are some of my favourite quotes from Deep End. Mostly, I'm afraid of attempting something and not being perfect at it. I'm just not in the mood for this. I mean, the way Lucas looks at me, like he can see the little crumpled up pieces of paper tucked in the corner of my head, the one where I wrote down my secrets, like he could easily flatten it and read every last word. I rated the book 2.5 stars, and I don't think I'll be buying any more of her books in the future. The writing style's just not 100% for me, and that's okay. So that was all the books that I read for this video, with one rule, only reading 2025 releases. I was actually quite shocked to read a short story that I rated 5 stars, but I also had some misses too. Whilst I did like the challenge, it didn't help me with my ever-expanding TBR, it just made me buy more books. Now, before we go, I'm going to go through the nods for each individual book, but first, the universal theme of 2025 releases. Now, obviously we have books in general, but the only other thing I could think of to do was 2025 on the chalkboard. And so, onto the nods for the crash, we had the car for the car crash, the snowflake and the snowman for the weather in the book, and the fish because she nicknames her baby tuna in the book. The psychopath next door had these nods. The house, as the story revolves around neighbours, the sunshine, as some of the book takes place during the school holidays, the flowers for the character of Rose, and the bird as the main family's surname is Dove. The nods we had in the full risk were the house for the apartments they're stuck in, the fish, as Seth has one called Swim Shady, and yes, I did laugh at that name, the heart for the romance, but also because it's set around Valentine's Day, and the bear for the dedication at the start of the book. The nods for 45 things to do before you're 45 were the writing bits for the list that she makes, so that includes the pencil and the notebook. One of the things on Charlie's list is to eat an oyster. Now, this is actually meant to be a mussel, but you get the idea. And the ghost, as the death of an old school friend starts Charlie off on her list. Something Like Fate had these particular nods. The snow globe used as a crystal ball for the psychic abilities. Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, I know. The sun and the sandcastle for the backpacking holiday in Italy, and the heart for the romance. And finally, the nods for deep end were the swimming pool, as Scarlett is a diver and Lucas is a swimmer, the heart locks, as it's not your classic romance, the birthday cake, as the book starts while Scarlett is having her birthday brunch, and the notebook for a list that Lucas leaves Scarlett. I really hope you've liked the video, and if you have, please do like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. If you like the one rule challenge, you might like this video here, which is only reading new authors to me, or YouTube thinks you might like this one here.